Okay, so we were talking about that thing from GSA.gov about their MAS program?
You mean the multiple award schedule?
Yeah, exactly the one you sent over.
Yeah.
It looks like they're planning some pretty big changes, and they're calling it right-sizing.
Right.
I think our listeners are going to want to hear all about this. So today our mission is to figure out what that really means.
Yeah, what does right sizing actually mean?
Especially for folks who work in government contracts.
Yeah, sure. This is a big one.
This is like insider info on a huge development.
Totally.
I mean, the GSA's MAS program, that's not just some random contract thing.
Right. It's way bigger than that.
Yeah, way bigger.
It's massive. It's like a whole operation.
Yeah.
Last fiscal year alone, we saw $51.5 billion in sales just in 2024.
Wow.
It's the biggest government commercial acquisition program globally.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
It's how the federal government buys pretty much everything.
Like what?
Everything from basic office supplies to super complicated IT services.
Wow. So this is like the backbone of how the government works with contractors.
Yeah, basically.
So yeah, when the GSA makes a move like this, everyone needs to pay attention.
It's a big deal.
So it's like the main way the government connects with all these different contractors.
Thousands of them.
Wow.
And they're all offering stuff that's already been vetted, goods and services, and the prices are already negotiated.
Yeah.
At least in theory, the whole point is to make things efficient and, make sure taxpayer money is being used well.
Right. So this right-sizing effort sounds like they're admitting that things aren't really working the way they should be.
Exactly. And the announcement is pretty clear about the problems they're trying to fix.
Like what?
Well, first, you've got these contracts that just aren't generating enough sales to justify all the administrative work that goes into them.
I see.
Then there are contractors who aren't following through on what they agreed to.
Oh, yeah. I bet that happens a lot.
More than you'd think, and then sometimes the government ends up buying the same things through multiple channels.
Yeah. Oh, wow. So they're paying twice.
Pretty much, and then there's this huge list of items in the schedule that nobody's even buying anymore.
Seriously.
Yeah, so the goal seems to be to streamline everything and make the whole program actually work the way it's supposed to.
Okay, so where should we start with all this?
Let's start with the part about contracts expiring based on how much they sell.
Okay. Yeah, that jumped out at me too.
They specifically mentioned FSS clause, IFSS 639, contract sales criteria.
Okay, that sounds important.
It's basically the rule book for this change.
So what does it mean?
Basically, it's like the GSA is saying, show me the money or get out.
Bah.
This clause sets these sales targets that contractors have to meet within a certain time period.
Okay.
And if a contract keeps falling short, the GSA can just let it expire.
Oh, wow. So they just cut them off.
Yep. The main reason for this is to make sure they're getting the most bang for their buck.
I could see that.
Why waste time and resources managing a contract that isn't really leading to any purchases? It makes way more sense to put all that effort into the contracts that are actually being used, for stuff the government really needs.
Right. It's like a store that gets rid of stuff that nobody's buying.
Exactly. Why keep it on the shelves if it's just taking up space?
Yeah.
So for our listeners, this probably means they're going to see a lot more changes in the list of available contractors. The contracts that stay will be the ones that are actually meeting the government's needs.
So how does the GSA even decide what those sales targets should be?
That's a good question, and the announcement doesn't really go into all the details.
Oh, really?
But we can make some educated guesses.
Like what?
Well, they've definitely looked at all the past purchasing data for the MAS program.
To see what's selling and what's not.
Exactly. And they're probably also thinking about how much it costs to manage each contract.
So if a contract has really low sales, it might actually cost more to keep it going than it's worth.
Exactly. It's all about making the most of their resources. And it's possible they've also looked at what other big organizations, do you know how they manage their vendors?
Okay, so it's not just a random number.
No, they've definitely put some thought into it.
Okay, good to know.
All right, so the next thing they talk about is dealing with contractors who aren't meeting their obligations.
Yeah, what do they mean by performance concerns?
Well, that can cover a pretty wide range of issues.
Like what kind of issues?
Things like contractors not delivering stuff on time or not meeting the quality standards that were in the contract.
Oh, right.
And then there are problems with customer service or even just basic administrative stuff, like not sending in reports or sending them in late.
Ah, I see.
So the GSA is basically saying, hey, we're not just looking at how much you're selling. We also care about whether you're actually doing what you said you would.
That makes sense.
It's not enough to just have a contract you have to actually deliver.
Right, so it's about making sure the contract is actually providing value and reliability. Because a contract with high sales but terrible performance doesn't help anyone.
No, it just creates more problems.
So this is about protecting the government's interests.
Yes, and it also makes things fairer for the contractors who are actually doing a good job.
Right, it levels the playing field.
Exactly.
Okay, so what about simplifying processes and getting rid of inefficiencies?
That's a big one. It could mean a lot of different things.
Give me some examples.
Well, they might streamline the whole application process for new contractors who want to join the MAS program.
Okay.
And they can make it easier to modify existing contracts.
And maybe make the online systems easier to use.
Yes, exactly. Both for the government buyers and the contractors.
Less red tape is always a good thing.
Right, especially when you're dealing with something this big.
Okay, let's talk about eliminating low-demand items.
Yeah.
How do they decide what to cut?
The announcement actually gives us some clues.
Okay.
They're focusing on items that just aren't being ordered enough, or situations where it costs more to keep them on the list than they're actually worth.
So they're analyzing all the purchasing trends.
Exactly. They're looking for stuff that hasn't sold in a long time.
And if it's costing them money to keep track of something that nobody's buying,
They're going to get rid of it.
makes sense.
It's like cleaning out your garage. Finally getting rid of that thing you never use.
I know that feeling.
It frees up space for the stuff you actually need.
Right, and the GSA even says this is about making the MAS program more focused on mission-critical needs.
Exactly. So they can focus on the stuff that really matters.
So what about reducing redundancies with other procurement channels?
Well, this means the GSA is looking at the big picture of how the government buys things. They're trying to see if the MAS program is overlapping with other government contracts.
Oh, so maybe there are other ways to buy the same stuff.
Exactly, and they want to streamline everything.
So the people aren't doing the same work twice.
Right, and they want to make sure the MAS program is offering something unique.
That makes sense.
It's about making sure the MAS program has a clear purpose.
Yeah. Okay, so the announcement also mentions the Trump-Vance administration.
Right. They talk about their focus on cutting waste and making the government more efficient.
So how does this right-sizing thing fit into that?
Basically, they're saying that these changes are a direct response to what the administration wants.
They're showing that they're listening.
Exactly, and that they're taking action.
So this is just one part of a bigger push to save money and make things run better.
Exactly. It's all about being more efficient.
Okay, so just to give everyone a sense of scale, how big is the GSA really?
The GSA is a huge part of the federal government.
Yeah.
They're basically the central hub for procurement and shared services for all federal agencies.
Wow.
Think about it. They manage a ton of real estate.
Yeah.
Over 360 million square feet of rentable space across the whole country.
That's incredible.
And they handle over $110 billion in contracts for all kinds of products and services.
Wow, so the MAS program is just one piece of the puzzle.
Exactly, but it's a big piece.
Okay, so what are the key takeaways here for our listeners?
The main thing is that the GSA is making some serious changes to the MAS program.
Yeah.
They want to make it more efficient, more focused, and more valuable.
And how are they doing that?
By doing a few key things. First, they're getting rid of contracts that aren't performing.
Right.
Then they're cracking down on contractors who aren't following the rules.
And they're making the whole program easier to use.
Exactly. Less red tape, more efficiency.
And they're getting rid of stuff that nobody's buying.
Streamlining the whole process.
And making sure the MAS program isn't duplicating other government contracts.
Exactly. They want to make sure it has a unique role.
So it sounds like it's all about being responsible with taxpayer money.
Yes, making sure the government is getting the most out of every dollar.
And ensuring that agencies have access to the things they really need.
The best products and services at the best prices.
So this has been a really interesting look at what's happening with government contracting.
Definitely some big changes ahead.
So for everyone listening, think about this. How might these changes affect businesses that work with the government?
Yeah, that's a good question to think about.
What does this focus on efficiency and value tell us about the government's priorities?
It's definitely a sign of the times.
This is something we'll all need to keep an eye on.
Absolutely. It will be interesting to see how it all plays out.
Okay, well, thanks for breaking this down for us.
No problem. Happy to help.
And for everyone listening, thanks for joining us on the Deep Dive.
Until next time.
Bye!